drummer.
Good day, mates. We're finally back at you, back with you here with some fresh black coffee.
Yeah.
And we do have some fresh stuff this week, I think. People will be glad to hear. We've got our monthly guest, David Arnett.
Good to be here.
With us. And we've got some local, state, and national things to deal with. Let's start with the local here. That's what I think we would, especially since David is here and chomping at the bits to get out.
Well, it was a slow news week nationally, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, Dave and I, we were in a bit of communication earlier this week. Someone brought to my attention, I didn't even know about it, and our senator, one of our senators, let's put it this way, the other senator, when we talk about this, apparently didn't know about this either, although apparently this is already going pretty far along. But our one senator, the senator, not from the Tulsa area, however, he happens to represent the entire state, and he has been, let's just put it this way, he's been very friendly with the Tulsa race riot crowd.
Trying to be.
Yeah.
They've been dissing him, too.
I know. That's what's so weird to me. I don't know whether he's trying to get back in their favor. I mean, as much, you would think he has learned by now. Speaking of Senator Langford, okay, I won't use any code anymore.
Senator James Langford.
James Langford, Oklahoma. Yes. And so here's the deal. Back in the 90s, this thing was resurrected, okay? And so the state wrestled with it, and it finally came up with what I think they thought was somewhat of a resolution. They formed the John Hope Franklin Park. I used to call it the John Hope Franklin Dog Park.
Because it's a pocket park.
Yeah, it's a park. It's supposed to be the John Hope Franklin Memorial Park. Mm-hmm. And I was there for the commemoration, and I mean, everybody that was anyone there. John Sullivan was our congressman at the time. He gave money towards it. And Dewey Bartlett was mayor at the time. Jack Henderson was the congressman. I mean, the rep, the state.
City councilor.
Oh, city councilor. I'm sorry. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Good you're here. The city councilor representing that district and everything. And so it was a big, grand old time. I have a picture in there of myself with John Sullivan, Dewey, and Jack. And they erected this monument in the middle, and it was all roses and millions spent on building this thing. It's right next to the baseball park down there. So anyway, they also decided, the state legislature, to enact a scholarship fund for worthy and needy children from North Tulsa and so forth and so on. So they're commemorating.
Now, was that fund, just out of curiosity, was that fund exclusively for the survivors of the race riot or every young person from North Tulsa?
I think it's for every any qualified, whatever the qualification is, right, right. I don't think it was just for the survivors. But see, I think that's the problem. The survivors felt that they wanted something for them. Mm-hmm. And not just the survivors. This is always the thing, okay? Even reparations, okay? It's never just about the survivors. It's the hangers-on. What do they call those with sharks? Suckerfish? You know, you got the suckerfish that swim around and
parasites.
Eat. Parasites, yeah. That are lawyers and other people that are looking to make money off of the people that are really deemed worthy. And so...
The Al Sharptons of the world.
Yeah.
Among others, right.
Yeah. And it's always just a little more. Mm-hmm. Just a little more.
Exactly. That's how much is enough? Just a little more, right? Yeah. And so, anyway, so this thing, it kind of quieted down, and it comes up a little bit, it comes down, up and down, up and down. So, that, it went away for a while. Well, in 2003, Johnny Cochran and Professor Ogilvy from Harvard came to town. Mm-hmm. And they specifically stated that, and it's still in the Tulsa World, in the archives, when they came, and quote, "We want to make Tulsa the linchpin in a national reparations case." And you see, here's the problem. In a national slavery reparations case, the Supreme Court has, and probably even appellate courts below the Supreme Court, but the big issue is statute of limitations. And so they have continually shot it down, saying the statute of limitations has run out. So, and the Tulsa race riot, massacre.
No.
Yeah, I know.
No.
I know. Oh wait, okay. I'm on your side. I'm just for those who have to have massacre. Anyway, they realized that to quote Johnny Cochran and Professor Ogilvy from
if the glove don't fit.
No,
oh, that's a different quote.
No. No, if the shoe don't fit, yeah, but reverse the. Never mind.
Yeah,
you're getting me all off. Anyway, but basically, what they're saying is, if they could get this was the whole gist of it. If they could get the statute cast out from the Tulsa race riot, if we could get Oklahoma to break the barrier, okay, then they can use that as case precedent for a national reparations case. Now, fast forward to today. We have a counselor in North Tulsa. Vanessa Hall Harper is her name. I will name her name. She regularly puts out in a newsletter, or not regularly, periodically in her newsletter, that she is fighting for reparations, national reparations. She's, I believe, part of the whole, I'm not positive, but I will bet you she's part of the national reparations movement. And she periodically says that it is important that we get the race riot reparations through so they can put it on a larger scale. So that's where we are. And Senator Langford, for some reason, cannot see this.
Kiss up.
Well, I don't know whether he's trying to gain the votes or with that liberal base over there, because I know he knows that he's in hot doo-doo.
Or maybe he feels guilty about something we don't know.
Nah, I don't think. I think it's a vote deal. I think he realizes that he is in trouble.
So it's not white guilt?
I don't think it's white guilt. I think it's white. I think it's black votes. I think it's black votes. So anyway, Mr. Arnett here has written an article.
If I may.
Yes, dealing with this.
Long setup, but that's good.
I just wanted to give the
Very
background.
thorough.
And so I pass it over to you, Dave.
I appreciate that. I wrote a story, and it's on the Substack site that I do, as well as Tulsa Today. But it's called Senator Langford's Massive Tulsa National Park. And what I was able to add to the conversation that had not been there before was the map, the draft map from the National Park Service on how big this thing is actually going to be. And it looks as though, from the map, that they want the land from Archer Street all the way north to Pine, and from Elgin east to Peoria. Now, there's a lot of things in that area, but the only specific thing that's mentioned is OSU's Signal Hill. They want to leave that alone. Now, the entire story talks also.
You're off, Eddie. I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. And OSU Signal Hill is right in the middle of it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the that's where OSU has put a little structure. It's right off 244.
Right.
But this will impact. They want to make this federal property. They want to make this a protected area. They want to build this out as some kind of monument and to benefit the survivors of the race riot from 100 years ago.
How are they going to benefit?
I have no idea. But that's essentially the plan here.
Okay.
Now,
David, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just for people to visualize, we're somewhat familiar. There's an area up there that's basically been cleared, blocks for, urban renewal. Does it include, I think that's from Cincinnati eastward.
There are parts of that that are included in there, but also the ballpark, but more significantly 244. Wow. And there is a church in North Tulsa that received $1.5 million to study the importance of taking 244 to ground level.
That's
so
federal.
It doesn't discriminate against people who might want to walk from Greenwood to OSU. Now, of course, there is access there. But this is part of the residue left by Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden, who actually came to Tulsa and, as far as I can tell, tried to start another race war with us.
Yeah.
But the point is that it was never a massacre. It was an armed civilian insurrection.
Yeah.
There were people on both sides. There were mobs of people on both sides, significant mobs that carried guns and shot their own and others who came across their path, who tried to stop them or disperse the group. Now, part of the problem of this, of course, is the Tulsa World and the Oklahoma Press publishing a book by Randy Crable, who has been rumored to be a political writer for the Tulsa World, but he seems more propagandist in this way, because he told me in an interview that the Race Riot Commission came to the Tulsa World offices and demanded that the word massacre be included in his book's title.
Right.
Something that had never really caught hold for then. But in 2021, where the big celebration of that horrible day occurred, and it's good for us to remember that it was a tragic thing. People died, white people, black people. Property was damaged. There was no good thing about it, in my opinion. There were idiots on both sides that did more damage to their own than they ever anticipated, but that happened. So what Langford is proposing is that area be set aside. But that area was not exclusively black in 1921. There's no accounting for those of Indian heritage or white who were living in the neighborhood.
Hispanic.
Hispanic people in it. And what this is, the story I hate most about this, that in 2021, was a National Geographic story that proved even my beloved National Geographics from my youth lied and said no one has ever talked about this previously undiscovered race riot. Well, every publication, especially every small publication, that has ever been printed in Tulsa has covered that race riot. I covered it in 1997 online on TulsaToday.com, carrying Ed Wheeler's story about it and, inviting people to look at that.
And when did Ed Wheeler's story come out?
That came out in 1974. I believe. So, there was no secret to this.
No.
But what the Marxists want to do, lining up with the communist activists who have long claimed America was a racist country, and they perpetuate racism by talking about it everywhere they go. But they wanted to wave this as another bloody red flag. Now, recognizing what happened, the accuracy of what happened, I think is important. But accuracy is not what is being promoted. A narrative is being promoted. And in fact, in my story, there is a photograph of a placard that is currently on Greenwood Street in Tulsa that begins by saying a mob of white people flooded into Black Wall Street, blah, 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 and did all of that. Well, that was not the beginning of the conflict. Yes, there were, once the firing started, once the shots rang out, it was a conflict. And it was horrible and all of that, and very traumatic. But it is time for us to settle on what the history is and put this back on the shelf rather than opening these wounds. But it seems that those who are wanting to profit by this will never quit until they get money. And as I understand it, the remaining survivors received a blessing from private sources in 2021. But nothing ever stops the continual drumbeat for, in many ways, black superiority.
Yeah, just a little bit more. They just
Tulsa, I believe, has been humiliated by this for 100 years.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And if anything, it's possible the city needs reparations from those who keep pushing for reparations for the damage they have done to our reputation.
To the image, yeah.
To the image of our community.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, David, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, that's one area you and I totally see eye to eye because they will not quit. I've been on this since about 96. About 96.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, it's ridiculous. You know, to me, Vince Gill had a song out called "There's No Future in the Past." There ain't no future in the past, and it's true. But these people will not quit, and it's race pimps and attorneys that are behind all of this, and you got stinking politicians like Vanessa Hall Harper, and others at the state level.
Well, let's not forget Regina Goodwin, who apparently doesn't want to pay a ticket either.
Well, let's wait. We'll get to that story later. But
drive by.
Yeah, that's why. Let's just put it under people at the state level.
Okay. At
the federal level, and even at the world level, that will never stop the race baiting. And what I always talk about is we've got another ethnic group in our city, in our state, in our nation that, to me, suffered as egregious of offenses as the black person has, and that's of course the Native American.
You sell out.
Well, Uncle Eduardo. but anyway, Uncle Ed. No, but anyway, no, but and you know, yet. And in fact, it's just sad to me because I used to live in El Paso.
Yeah.
And I go to El Paso periodically. And I drive through New Mexico. I go over Ruidoso and then come down through Mescalero territory. And I've talked to people who work at the different reservations. And when you go out into Wyoming, Montana, even a bit north, I've talked to people here, descendants of the Lakota, for example.
You're right.
Some of the tribes here.
Yeah, you've talked a lot about it.
Yeah, and when you look at what they have and have received compared to some of our civilized, that's I'm going to digress a second because this one just cracks me up. You have, what is it, the 5 civilized?
That's right.
5 civilized,
which means the rest are what?
Savages.
Uncivilized.
Yeah, uncivilized. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the others put up with it.
I know.
It'd be like we've got some Negroes over here and we got a bunch of niggers over here. I mean, it's
okay,
that type of thing.
You were hinting at there being another race of people who are oppressed.
Exactly.
Yeah, could we get?
Yeah, well, I know you're sensitive. I'm sorry I've offended your sensibility.
I'm waiting for your answer to that.
Well, no. What I'm saying is
Hispanics.
No,
I'm talking about Native American.
I'm talking about the Native American.
Yeah, right.
Keep up, Dave. Keep up.
Okay.
No, but
well, you went to El Paso first, so that's why.
Well, because when I go through the Mescalero reservation.
Yep.
And when you see, I remember I first went to the Mescalero reservation in 1957.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 1959. I was like 7 years old, okay? And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget seeing it. And they did a rain dance, and we had to go get on the buses because it started raining during the rain dance. It was the funniest thing. No,
it worked!
But anyway.
Thank you, Jesus!
Yeah. So anyway, but the conditions are the same as they were back in 1950, 60. And the tribes there, but I don't hear an outcry for them like I hear for African Americans. And every time you turn around, we're giving more money to black people. And I'm tired. I'm black and I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
Stop. And Tulsa, everywhere, in my neighborhood, we've got lots of black people. I go to Whole Foods, okay? Whole Foods is considered a yuppie grocery store. You go in there, it's full of black people in there. What if they're so poor, they'd be at Walmart or some other place? But no, we got to go to Whole Foods because, I'm going to really digress. I better quit because I'm going to talk about the whole real reason, the whole real reason for the downfall of North Tulsa. And it's because a good friend of mine used to be, his family owned the drugstore up there. And others were doctors and had all the plumbers and so forth. But as soon as integration hit, people started going because white plumbers were better, white drugstores were better. As they used to have a saying, the white man's ice is colder, the water is sweeter.
Well, that's an inferiority complex.
I heard that line from a black lady restaurateur when a buddy of mine and I went to the restaurant in North Tulsa, and they were getting ready to close. I think it was on Apache and about Cincinnati where the restaurant was. A great restaurant, good food. And we went there and we were talking to her and expressed sympathy for the restaurant closing. And she goes, yeah, I don't know what it is, but apparently my own community believes the ice is colder in South Tulsa than it is in their own neighborhood.
Yeah.
But what this has continued to fester, and in fact has been grown deliberately by some purveyors of disagreement. And yet, when I sat down and talked recently with the executive editor of the Tulsa World, Jason, said that he'd never heard of that until he read that story on Tulsa Today. When I interviewed Monroe Nichols, our new mayor, he actually mentioned during the interview white fragility, because we had been talking about whether it was a massacre or a civil war, which is what I believe it was, an armed civilian insurrection or civil war here in Tulsa. And that is terrible. That should be, a red flag for all of us, that if we allow rumor and misinformation I guess, to grow, that you can have people get that upset. But the 1921 event in Tulsa was a direct result of a lynching, not in northeastern Oklahoma, but in Oklahoma City.
That's key. Fill us in on that.
It did not happen here. There was no lynching in Tulsa.
Yeah, but it
in
was
the Tulsa area. There was in Oklahoma City.
Yeah,
and the rumor, apparently, because the Black Tulsans knew about it, they had heard about it.
It stirred them up.
It stirred them up. Mm-hmm. So when the individual grabbed the black individual who grabbed at a white elevator operator's purse, took it and ran with it, was caught in the courthouse and was arrested and being held, then the African American community or the Black Tulsans rallied, and some of them were World War I vets.
Sure.
Well, the same thing on the white side. But as Randy Crable actually in his book accurately details, this was not unique to Tulsa in 1921. Mm-hmm. This was happening throughout the country. And he told me in an interview that if you really read his book, you'll find that this was kind of the tenor of the day.
Before you go on, that point at it being national, in my hometown in central Minnesota, there was a Swedish young kid, and the Swedes thought they were the superior race. The kid's name was Charles Lindbergh. His dad was a congressman from my hometown. And, later in the 30s, he was kissing up with Adolf Hitler, but at the same time writing articles that he thought the Scandinavians were the more superior race. What I'm getting at is racism was universal. It wasn't just black and white either. They were putting down the Irish, they're putting down the Italians,
Martin Luther King said it best. He said it forever. He nailed how we should, as human beings, operate. It is not the color of your skin, but the content of your character that determines whether you were good or bad. And to go back to the Monroe Nichols interview that I did, after he brought up white fragility, which apparently was a book I haven't read. Terrible book. But, I later talked with Representative Kevin Hearn, and we had a couple of other issues we were talking about. But in the course of that, I asked him, Kevin, you've known me for years. Have you ever known me to be verbally fragile on any topic ever?
You won't show it if you are.
And he goes, no. No.
Yeah.
No. I am tired of people who gather in their own silo with those who agree with them, who push out anybody who might disagree with them.
Yeah, got to have a group think.
I love talking to people who disagree with me.
You learn more that way.
Why would I want to talk to myself? I've been known to argue with myself and disagree with my own opinions. That's how you test.
Yeah.
Scientifically, you test to see whether the ideas are good. On the open field of public debate, on public policy, we must meet with others who disagree.
Yeah, I'm just saying, your point, I just wanted to echo that, is that this racial animosity was not just black and white. Now, the Klan was at its peak right around 21, 22. Wasn't it Harding that joined the Klan while president?
Look at it worldwide.
Well, we know Wilson showed their movie.
Yeah. In the White House.
The first movie ever shown in the White House.
Yeah, was the
nation
horrible. Yeah.
What is it? The Pride of...
Yeah,
I can't remember the name.
That was being in the military or from a military family. Eddie, you should know, the Japanese don't like the Koreans.
Right, and vice versa.
And vice
or the
versa.
Chinese.
Or the Chinese. Well, Chinese don't like anybody. But
Well, they shouldn't like the Japanese for what they did to them. But anyway, that's another story.
Here's the point. I can find things to disagree with everybody about, and they can find things to disagree with me.
I think you're good at it.
Thank you very much. I actually had a Tulsa lawyer that got that was on my Substack email list, who got mad at me because I wrote about the A Tale of Two Bishops. That's the most recent
I just looked
thing.
at that headline. Yeah.
Now, that has not gone up on Tulsa Today, and I may not put it on Tulsa Today. It's on the Substack site.
Oh, okay.
But Bishop Cox is being his body is being laid to rest. He joined his Lord after 104 years.
Wow. Who is
104 years. Bishop Cox was a Episcopalian bishop for a long time, and then when the Episcopalians decided to stop following the Bible and the words of Christ, Bishop Cox, I, and others withdrew from the Episcopal Church and became Anglicans. Now, Bishop Cox was not political, but he was theological. And I did a compare and contrast between Bishop Cox and the Episcopal bishop, Bodie, I believe her name was, who went on a political tirade and humiliated the denomination and herself significantly in front of the whole world in a national prayer service.
Just this last week.
Tuesday, I believe it was.
Bishop Cox's funeral's today, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I'm going to rejoin them when we finish for the internment. Which is why I wore a suit coat. I really usually follow Eddie's casual dress code, but a little bit more dressed up in there.
Well, I wanted to, while I've got you in here, Dave, you've gone to more city council and committee meetings and probably us too, many times over.
Only because I was paid.
Yeah, well, that's too. It's always good to get paid. But this thing called the Tulsa Development Authority.
Well, Dave, hold that thought, but let's wrap this up. So essentially, we're getting back to the thing of Senator Langford. And
Senator Langford,
let's wrap that up.
Wants a huge area of downtown Tulsa, and that will impact every Tulsan who pays property tax.
Right.
Because if you remove people from the body of folks who pay property tax, then the tax will go up for those not removed.
Is there any federal benefit? Will it garner any federal money?
This is a proposal that Senator Langford actually entered a bill into Congress. Now, you told me you talked to Mark Wayne Mullen about this. What did he say about that bill? Is it still active? He was unaware.
Yeah, yes, it is active, and it's. I heard from him and from Senator Langford's chief of staff, where they were trying to calm me down on it and saying they're not really trying to take over the whole area, even though the whole area is encompassed in this bill. They said they just want to do the hill. They want to make that a monument or whatever. But in the bill, it covers the whole area.
Well, if that justifies them taking 244 to ground level and putting stoplights on an expressway, that's insane.
Well, yeah. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. See, which I explained to him. Okay, once you take this out of local control, in other words, if you remove it from the city authority and make it federal authority, we have no say. The people of Tulsa no longer have a say. Yeah. And if someone in Washington decides, let them do whatever they want, boom, tear it down.
Right. I'm getting at a very crucial part of this specific thing, because in the 80s and 90s, remember all the prostitution problem at Haskell in Maine? It was so bad. That whole area right now is bulldozed. It's just flat. I'm assuming it was Tulsa Development Authority. They'll come in and they will just, eminent domain, take out neighborhoods like they did at Pine in Peoria to put that shopping center in. And affordable housing for the low income many times is greatly affected by it. And I think that's what happened there. What I'm saying is, I think that the black community who feels like they're getting pinched and, removed needs to look at our own Tulsa Development Authority, primarily under Susan Savage administration.
To that point.
Yeah.
The Tulsa Economic Development Group that does this is Urban Renewal. Their whole plan for North Tulsa was developed by Black Tulsans. They are primarily, the body is made up of Black Tulsans. Now, that is, and what they've tried to do is gather small properties in order to put, as government tries to do always, they want a big deal. They want some kind of industrial thing.
Like that wonderful shopping center that can't make it.
Yes.
Up there by Peoria.
Because government always wants the big deal.
Yeah.
Because that makes them feel important. Here's what, in my humble opinion, we can solve all of this if government that owns that property to the north and in some cases to the south of 244, let's have an auction of that and let individuals buy that land and develop it. Because the problem you have with the Greenwood Center and the economic struggle that they're going through now is because there's not enough rooftops in the area. There's not enough individuals owning homes. So
or enough of value.
Yes,
either.
Of value. So let's let individuals come in, and rather than one big deal, let's do a lot of small deals and rebuild the community through private money, through property that people own that they will take care of, that they will maintain to certain standards, and then you can grow the commercial side of it.
Yeah, we are in a place right now, and this is a little bit getting off, where families starting out looking for that starter home have never had such a big challenge because they're competing against BlackRock and all these companies that are buying up real estate as a hedge against inflation.
Well, David, that's in large part the result of the demon Democrats who have, destroyed our economy. Now, that's going to change, we hope, as the powers that be change. We have now a disruptor in chief as president.
Yeah.
And the executive orders that they've put together are outstanding. And this, his team, if the Democrats would try and slow walk it, but we need to have in this conversation a Democrat, because I don't know what their policies are anymore. Identity politics didn't work.
That's a good
Demonizing someone for a decade doesn't work.
I don't think they know what their policy is.
Democrats don't have a public policy that works. Open borders? No, that's not going to work. You cannot have a welfare state and an open border at the same time.
Yeah. Right. Hey, getting back to our discussion, it would be interesting to find out who has money in that area.
Yeah.
In other words, the investment in that quadrant. And to see because okay. I guarantee you it's going to be Yuppieville. It's going to be an urban sprawl. You're going to end up with all of the people downtown.
I disagree. I think it's the Tulsa Development Authority that bulldozed it 2 decades ago and can't find a way to get rid of it.
Right, but that's what I'm saying though. But once they federalize it, I think that you'll all of a sudden then you'll be able to see development come in because it'll come under a new authority, and they'll make deals.
But here's my point in all this.
And Teddy won't have any say any longer.
Right. My point is the poor people of that community have less and less housing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying but if you really look at it, it's not about the people in that community.
Yeah, that's
what I'm saying. You need to investigate who's really going to make out. And I guarantee you some of these city councilors are behind this, are going to make out.
I'll stop at this. I rewatched the movie The Preacher's Wife, remake of The Bishop's Wife. Anyway, that whole point was about that. This big developer coming in, and the pastor's like, wait a minute. My people, my congregation won't have any place to go because this is all they can afford.
Yep.
And that's why I think these big shot Democrat, pie in the sky, they are hurting the very people who are voting for them.
And something that a lot of people don't realize too is that North Tulsa is being encroached upon by more and more by the Hispanic community. Mm-hmm. North Tulsa is not exclusively black anymore. You've got more and more Hispanics moving in.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue. That's what happened to Compton. Compton ended up that way.
Yeah. And
you're going to end up having...
Compton, California,
yeah. Compton is no longer a black community. It's a Hispanic community now, which is weird, so...
Well, given the massive investments that George Kaiser has done in this community, and it's kind of interesting. Maybe we should ask him his plans for Kaiserville, our humble city. But
another zinger from David Arnett.
The joke at City Hall is there's only two kinds of Tulsans: those who know and those who don't know. They work for George Kaiser. But the Planning Commission in any county is throughout Oklahoma is where you see money and influence meet the ground.
Yeah.
And some prosper greatly, others not at all, and are betrayed by that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Can you tell me, just to wrap this up, I keep saying just to wrap this up, the authorities and trusts and commissions that we see at a municipal level and state level, like Turnpike Authority, that didn't our Constitution ban governments from doing that stuff? How do they exist? Could you fill us in?
No, I can't. But I'll tell you what, and I did not really bring it with me, or maybe, Eddie, you might have a copy of the Oklahoma Constitution. They publish.
I don't think this room's big enough for that.
They publish the Constitution and the laws.
Everything's in here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
but it's about 3 inches thick.
Yeah, it's the biggest,
as opposed to the U.S. Constitution that you can make pocket size. And typically, when I give speeches, I compare the two and ask people which one they'd prefer to live under. Democrats ran Oklahoma for 100 years.
Yeah, and largely the tribes, right?
Democrats were the party of the South.
Yeah.
And they remain, they started the KKK. They're still lying and cheating today. Not a big, let's follow the law group. Democrats, God love them.
Yeah.
But maybe they can rebuild their party with something coherent for this decade.
Yeah.
And I hope so, because there needs to be a two-party back and forth. But
two righteous parties.
All they've got is Donald Trump syndrome and demonizing everyone else.
Yeah.
But let's grab another topic.
I think we beat this.
We could. Well, I mean, honestly, this one we could go on for another day.
It was rich.
Because it has branches. It keeps going into another area. But to wrap up the whole area here, bringing it back, Senator Lankford is in midst of trying to federalize a swath of downtown Tulsa. And we're opposed to it, and you should be too. So that's all you need to know. Call his office if you can. Say you're opposed to it.
One more thing. Senator James Lankford, we've got a fourth chair. We'd love to have you come in sometime. Let you explain it. We'll respectfully listen. Yep. Come on, David. You can do it. You're big enough.
Well, the other thing, since we are media here, is the story that I wrote about nailing normal and new narratives. Now, that's from a conversation that I mentioned earlier, sitting down with the executive editor of the Tulsa World. But all of that, and I hope people get a chance to read that because it's got a line or two that's kind of funny. I hope that they appreciate. But the big thing is the $14 million nonprofit effort that includes the Tulsa World, Griffin Communications, the blog, The Frontier, and some other radio stations. But they're all left-leaning or leftist narrative operators who are going to help resurrect the Oklahoma Eagle again for the umpteenth time. I mean, the Eagle has been in and out of bankruptcy so often they have revolving doors, I think, to the office for that purpose. But now they're going to reestablish, because they claim that media is not serving specific communities. Now, there's a website on this they've set up, and if you read it, then it's George Kaiser's daughter, Kathy Taylor, all kinds of other strange, lovely leftists.
I guess the
folks.
left doesn't know how to do podcasts because they haven't been serving the conservative people, so we started our own.
But my question is, so $14 million because no one of those organizations is writing to the community, or are the communities not buying their BS?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, it's one or the other.
It's an admission that they're failing, though.
But David, you and Eddie both may enjoy this.
Yeah.
Because at the very end of this post, I suggested that maybe what we really need to do is half that amount, $7 million, to have a media outreach for male pattern baldness victims.
There you go.
Obviously, they're not controlled by the current leftist media or by social workers reaching out to them. Yeah. So we need a special nonprofit effort. Now, I resemble that group deeply. Yeah. I have found that as a result of that now, I am just as identifiable walking away from people as I have been walking up to them.
Well, you see, you're bald in front. That means you're a thinker. I'm bald in back means I'm a lover. Now, when you're bald in front and back, you just think you're a lover.
I have heard that line once or twice.
Oh, that's good.
But I can't really testify to the effectiveness of that because as a man, I'm currently not. I don't have a domestic management authority in my life, so I struggle without direction often. But the point of that is to ridicule this silliness.
Yeah, sure.
That the left needs. Now, here's the other question. Are they putting $14 million into loony leftist media because they're afraid of Eddie Huff and fresh black coffee? Because they're going to fight disinformation. Who in Tulsa is giving disinformation contrary to these titans of local media?
Right. No, they are afraid. Yeah, they have to. They're fearful.
I think this is just a money laundering thing.
Whoa.
I would not say that, but
Okay.
I
wouldn't
do
either.
wonder. I do wonder who's going to own this effort.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're putting all the nonprofit money into it, is it?
To me, it's just a waste more than a money laundering. I think it's just they're wasting their money because there's no. For example, I had the editor and one of the writers. Okay, the writer is a white girl, and they came in. They were all nice. They did like an hour and a half interview with me.
No, that wasn't the Eagle. That was
it was the Eagle. It was the Eagle.
Okay.
Yeah, I had two different ones, but that was the Eagle. An hour and a half, and very cordial, very nice, and made small. And they looked at my photos and made great comments. And the new editor, he's been around. He worked in Washington and in Europe as well, as I understand. Good guy, black guy. The writer's this white lady, and they were very nice. And then, of course, when the article comes out, it's nothing like what the interview was about, or the questions, or my answers.
They schmoozed you,
it's a
didn't
typical,
they?
yeah, it's a typical ploy, but it's not going to work anymore. See, they accuse Republicans of thinking black people or of thinking black people are stupid, but it's the reverse. Republicans actually give black folks and Hispanics, all minorities in general, give them more credit than the Democrats do. It's the late Herman Cain wrote a book back in about 2008, I think it was. It was called "They Think You're Stupid," and that is exactly what Democrats think of Hispanics and black folks. They think they're stupid.
Well, and they're easily purchased for small amounts of money.
Right, but it's not that way anymore.
But I know, but that's the whole Democratic thing.
Yeah.
Is we promise various identifiable groups a special benefit, and they're so stupid they're going to just fall right
It's
in
like
line.
they used to do with
That's
Native
crazy.
Americans, and they've tried it everywhere, and it's just it doesn't work anymore because the people are smarter now, and so I think their jig is up. I mean, that time is over. That people are too smart, and that's why they don't understand. That's why the Oklahoma Eagle is failing, because they're not writing to the intellectual level of the constituency.
May I give one little story?
Yeah.
The last time I've been a writer. I pitch stories to publishers, to editors, for them to run the story. And I had a good story that I thought impacted every Tulsa County resident. And it was probably a property tax or some other, I don't remember now, because it was many years ago, many years ago. But I pitched that story to the Oklahoma Eagle. And, Eddie, this is what they told me. They said, if it doesn't have a black face on it, it's not news to us.
That's racist.
That's what I thought. I thought that human beings have more commonality than they do, the coloring of their skin.
Right.
And to only identify them by color of the skin is racist. Now, I live in a mixed race community, and it's a mixed gender community, and according to their voting record, it's a Democrat neighborhood. And I pray for their salvation on a regular basis. But still, we got to get over this. You can't, you got to write good news. You got to break good news.
Right.
The fact that the Tulsa World did not have a map of Langford's massive national park and didn't even, when I released it to the public, I mean, elected officials hadn't seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Like
Nobody
I said,
had
Senator Markwayne Mullin didn't even know about it.
So
I'm trying to figure out how is he pulling this off in D.C. without other senators knowing about it, or the other congressional members.
And why aren't we talking about it? Now, I know I have interviewed someone who was working with the Reconciliation Committee in the beginning, and they withdrew from participation when they figured out it was all about reparations. It's no reconciliation. Now, maybe with a black mayor, we can now get to reconciliation, but I don't know.
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah, that worked so well with Obama, didn't it?
Didn't work well at all with Obama.
No, we're
Obama
seeing,
made us more racist.
You know,
Exactly.
I really feel kind of sorry for him because, as we saw in the Regina Goodwin, which we'll get to that story, we'll just juxtapose, or not juxtapose, we'll just smooth into it. But in this, well, let's just do that. Let's wrap this one up, put a bow on it. Boom. You saw this week where our state rep, Regina Goodwin, representing, and it relates again to the Oklahoma Eagles. She's one of the Goodwin family. And now, is she natural or did she marry into the family?
You know, the Goodwins have more in-laws and outlaws than the Drummonds do, so I can't really keep track of who's who.
Okay.
I'm doing good to keep
let's put it this
my
way.
own
She is
family
making bank on her name. People have used that name in this town for decades.
Ever.
Right. And anyway, but so she was this week, just a few days ago, stopped by the sheriff's department for running 2 stop signs.
Yeah, I'm reading. Jameson Fott, the Muskogee Political, has a great write-up on it.
So she ran 2 stop signs, and she was stopped by one of our deputies doing his job, and she refused to give him her ID. All he asked for
15 requests.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you watch.
I watched that video.
Yeah,
I
me too.
loved that. That is, it doesn't have anything to do with the color of her skin. It
Doesn't have to do
has
with anything.
everything to do with her entitlements.
Right.
Arrogance as a public official.
Right.
And we've got some judges in Tulsa County that go down to the same neighborhood there, you know, and drink heavily and drive around. And it's just,
she calls the mayor, our new mayor, and he shows up. Now, to his credit, he just stood there and he didn't really get involved. He stopped and just watched, which was good because if he had gotten involved, he'd have really had egg on his face. But I think he realized in the end, when he got down there, that this was not what she probably told him on the phone, or whoever called him told him on the phone. It wasn't all. This was purely a case of a woman who thought she was privileged and didn't have to obey the laws. And the deputy clearly told her he was going to give her a warning, which you, Dave, would not have gotten. You either, Dave, would not have gotten a warning. You would have gotten a ticket.
Last fall, I got a ticket for 1.
Yeah.
Not a warning.
She ran 2 stop signs, and the officer should be reprimanded for stating that he would have only given her a warning, because there's no reason to give her a warning when she ran 2 stop signs.
That's right.
But yet he told her that on the tape, on the video, and then she thought her name and her privilege could get her out of this, and refusing to give. And then he lets her out and lets her go right there.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a colorblind issue in Tulsa that is, there are more than just Miss Goodwin who believe they are elitist.
Right, but
who believe they are powerful, who believe that they alone own this city because their granddaddy did something,
right.
You know, this.
Yeah.
I mean, the first generation earns the wealth. The second generation tries to maintain it. The third generation just pisses it away. Yeah, and lives off it. And
Dean Davis did the same thing in Broken Arrow a few years ago.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he blamed it. I'll just say now, he hypoglycemia. He says, when I get hungry, I get irritable and that. Okay, that's essentially like being drunk when it comes to attitude and that. But, yeah, there's people like that because they're in office. Remember Martinez, We caught him on video in Edmond. He resigned the next week.
There was a Republican legislator that threatened people. I mean, this happens all the time.
But there's a difference.
Stykes or
That's
Steve.
right.
Yeah, that guy.
Stykes.
So it is not a party. It is
but
not
there's a difference,
race.
Dave. Republicans pay a cost. Democrats don't.
Bingo.
And that's what ticks me off.
Well,
Republicans either resign or they pay a cost at the polls.
Yeah.
Whereas Democrats don't. Democrats don't resign and then they get reelected.
Democrats hire their ideological friends. Republicans stand in a circle and shoot theirs for not being pure enough.
Boom, boom. Well said. Yeah, I think, and I have a mild reprimand for the deputy here. Because she does it once, she gets a warning. When she did it a second time.
But I agree with you, David, not to, stereo too much, but the deputy had that camera on. And that makes the difference. I am so glad for Tulsa County sheriffs to have those cameras and for TPD to have their cameras, and they should be on because this is the only way we can, whether it's Gene Stipe driving 80 miles an hour down the highway drunk as a pig or anybody.
Well,
I don't care how powerful or powerful they think they are.
Okay. I'm going to say one thing to tag on to that. Sheriff Regalado, soon after getting elected, he started the Sheriff's Foundation. And he said, I need it because I have no way of getting badge cams. There's just not my budget. Tulsa County has endless money for our community college and VOTEC. But seems like our sheriff can't even train his officers.
Well, in due respect, Tulsa County has a limited budget. The VOTEC goes to the people and gets funding. And, they get funding on a regular basis. They've got more money than Carter has.
Yeah, the formula on property tax.
At the same time, our county schools, public common education, does not have money. We need to look at, throughout Oklahoma, how are these institutions and governments funded, and how can we better balance, because I believe Oklahoma has always been a wealthy state made poor by corruption and special interest and a corrupt court system.
Well, the late assessor Ken Yeazel, this was his mission.
Yeah.
To end this, because he would constantly send me emails and make phone calls and tell me about the misallocation of our funds to the libraries and the community college and TC. What is it down here? The VOTEC.
Yeah,
they were getting so much money, and I actually experienced this because I went to the head of the VOTEC, and that's why they keep building new ones.
Yes,
they keep building the Tulsa Techs all over, and they're empty. They don't have students to put in them because they don't have enough students to put in them, and yet they have to keep building because they've got too much money.
Yeah,
they've got so much money. They
property
can't
tax funds.
Right, property tax. Right.
That formula is set.
Right. And so they had to figure out a way of being able to reallocate this, and he kept pushing. No one ever did anything for it. And we need to talk to I think we have some county commissioners now, 2 of them at least, that are would be willing to do it. So maybe we need to make an issue out of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the county commissioners have the authority to reduce the millage that voters have approved for VOTEC.
Right, but they can at least support it and bring it before the people.
We need people with courage to take their public platform, to your point, and speak about it. But I remember the time the library was desperate to pass an increase in millage for something.
Yeah.
It failed. then they got the something anyway. Anytime you look at an organization, you've got to be able to read their budget, because it's called fund accounting, where government, and it's a form of accounting the government uses, they drop money in various funds. And when you look and see, well, wait a minute, here's a fund over here that contains enough money for your entire operating budget, maybe you need to shift that money elsewhere.
Right.
I mean, they play games all the time. And the Tulsa world has failed to hold anyone accountable ever for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Hey, homeless friend of mine called this morning on my way to the studio. He said, Dave, remember that big new electric car company I was going into prior? Canoe. Filed bankruptcy.
Yeah, they're in bankruptcy.
Yeah. And evidently the CEO was just spending money hand over fist on caviar and jet sets and stuff. So interesting. But
I got to ask you, you introduced that topic by saying a homeless guy called you and told you that. How much credibility and research do homeless people do?
Well, this guy's really sharp.
Yeah, he must be. I was going to say.
You're not talking about the guy that wears a Santa suit and rides a bicycle.
No, I'm talking about the son of a former mayor of a suburb of Tulsa.
And he's homeless?
Yeah.
Is it a drug situation? Usually is
mental health.
Mental health.
Yeah.
So,
but
this is a mental health person reporting to you on an issue you bring now live worldwide.
You confirmed the story yourself.
He keeps his ear to the ground. I mean, he stays informed.
No, he's really, really, amazingly sharp. Amazingly sharp.
He just can't cope with society in the normal way.
It's just other issues. I can't go into it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I kind of am his support system on his mental health. He checks in with me. I'm just that way. Yeah.
Oh, you're just that way. Yeah.
I mean, he loves study, because growing up in a mayor's household, you get the bug for politics and you see the corruption, and so yeah.
Hey, let's move nationally. And is there more state stuff?
No. The whole point of that is, are we sick of this corporate welfare? Money for jobs that governors tend to compete with each other for. Because here's the last thing I had heard was Canoe actually went then down to Texas. They never actually did anything in Oklahoma except beg for money, and somehow they didn't get enough, so they went and hit up Governor Abbott.
And took his money. And
if we only had an investigative news organization that would look into that.
Well, I'm trying to tease you into doing it. Whet your appetite, David.
I need another long-term unpaid job like I need another hole in the head. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a few of those already.
Yeah, but you and I have seen this for decades. The big corporate, money for jobs.
I understand there are a lot of states that incentivize private companies to come in and set up operations. And that is a valid proposition if their hiring base is large enough that the community, the state, and the city, and a good example of that is Google. What they have done for the local school system in Pryor and the other areas, that is magnificent. But here's something that Mike Mazie pitched at one point: was rather than giving a company that's international or out of Oklahoma hundreds of millions of dollars to build a plant, why don't we give local Oklahoma businesses
who are loyal
and live here and started here or that are trying to grow here, let's give them, $100,000 or $50,000 or something.
Yeah.
And most employment is from small businesses, not the large business.
Right.
The greatest growth and the most blessed opportunity is to take a small company and make it into a big one, where you hire people and you make more profit and you grow those kinds of things.
Yeah, the Quick Trip story is a great example.
Quick Trip is really good. And by the way, it was sad to see Bert Holmes pass. One of the founders of Quick Trip.
Yeah,
wonderful guy. I really wanted to interview. That's one of the people I wanted to interview because I disagreed with him so often, but he proclaimed himself to be a Republican so often. I really wanted to reconcile the two of those.
Well,
things
he was a Thornburg
together.
Republican. For those of you who know what that term means in Tulsa,
but I want to talk with people who disagree, like we were talking about earlier. You don't want to stay within your isolated silo.
Sure.
You want to get out of that and test your ideas and test policy on the open field of public debate. And we're not doing enough of that.
Yeah. Which reminds me, which Come and Go has gone and went. They have a new name now. It's been bought out.
Yeah, Maverick. A West Coast outfit.
Right. They was Get and Go first, wasn't it?
Well, Get and Go went bankrupt. Come and Go out of Des Moines bought up the buildings.
Right.
Yeah. So, but they were shuttered for years, I think, a couple of years.
Yeah. So Mavericks come in. They made some new changes. One thing I do like, they offer 100% gas at their pumps. And I do notice a difference. For those of you that have never tried, let your gas run almost all the way out and try. It's going to cost you probably 10, 20 cents more per gallon for pure 100% benzene or petrol, but it will definitely burn more powerfully. Your car will go faster and will go longer.
And how it's usually identified is no ethanol.
Right, no ethanol, exactly.
That's on the pump. That's what you look for.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a couple of independent places. I go out of my way to get that kind of gas because I have a 30-year-old car that runs better on it.
Yeah, and you don't have to go out of your way anymore. It's a Maverick.
Well, and speaking of that, if your car is classic like yours, the alcohol can actually damage the gaskets. And so on some of those older cars, the newer cars they've made, for that so that they don't damage them. But that's what I've heard too, is the alcohol can damage
the
those
ethanol.
By
alcohol, you mean ethanol?
Ethanol, can damage.
Alcohol damages the driver. Ethanol damages the car. Let's try and get this up now. Get this right.
Hey, we're gonna switch. We're gonna switch.
A toast to Homer Simpson to alcohol, the solution to all men's problems and also the cause of them.
Hey, it's been quite a week. The election on Tuesday. The inauguration
on Monday.
The final result of the election occurred on, was it Monday or Tuesday?
Monday.
That's right. It was a holiday. Exactly. That's right. Because it was Martin Luther King. I was sick.
How racist of him.
Yeah, I was in bed most of, as you know, last week we didn't have this because you don't want to hear about it. But anyway, I was in bed all day, so I got to watch all the activities all day long. But anyway, it was quite something, man. I mean, it was quite an inauguration day, and so I went through the whole day watching it on what I consider our channels, Fox, Newsmax, some of those. I did have to switch to, finally I got sick of the pundits all telling us what I was watching when I could watch it for myself. So I ended up at C-SPAN and just watched what I was watching, But then probably around Thursday, I started going back and watching the videos on YouTube of MSNBC, CNN, what they were saying about it. It's like, what planet are you people on? Do you do that? Did you go watch some of the opposition media? Oh my goodness. It was unbelievable.
Rachel Maddow and The View and all of these people. Where America has failed is in its editorial judgment in media. Nobody wants to be responsible for anything nowadays. Your local publisher is responsible. On broadcast, it's your general manager. But nobody, it's corporate or whatever. Nobody wants to be. I'm responsible for what I write. If I aggravate people, I hear about it.
Yeah.
They want to unsubscribe to something or whatever. Great. Okay. No problem. Why do you want to do it? Okay, fine. But we have not held people responsible for stupid.
Right.
And Jesse Smollett is a good example of that. But why they allow The View to be that evil for this long, but just totally befuddles me.
Yeah.
But I have to give the left kudos on one topic. On the inaugural, one of Obama's primary consultants, staff members, was on YouTube later saying that the left does understand that real power comes from the end of a gun. And I really had my doubts whether the leftist, Marxist, Obama, Biden, semi-communist, but they don't want to admit communist folks would actually comply with the Constitution and allow the free transfer and the peaceful transfer of power. And they did that. And whatever else I may dislike about them, and there's a whole shopping list of those incompetent policies that they want to destroy the world with, they did at least allow this. Now, they're continually fighting it. The Democrats are. But I believe we have reestablished a meritocracy, as Trump has said. Merit matters.
Yeah.
And local broadcasts like Fresh Black Coffee, where we can ridicule stupid on a local, state, and national basis, is the way we're going to maintain normal.
Yeah.
Because this non-confrontational period that we've gone through of 10 or maybe 20 years where nobody wants to say anything, even though they're mentally ill, talking about Kamala Harris here. These kinds of things need to be called out when they're really that dang dumb. Dang dumb. I said dang dumb, didn't I? It almost
it's a tongue twister if you keep going. Or Joe Biden or Barack Obama. Which reminds me, I'm going to try to keep all these trains of thought going. As Obama's going, where's Michelle? Has anyone seen Michelle?
There's rumors.
Is she going to be floating in the Atlantic Ocean like the chefs?
Yeah.
I think her and Meghan Markle are going to do some kind of podcast together, aren't they?
I don't know. I haven't heard.
That'd be interesting.
I don't know.
Well, I will say this. The most plausible and least controversial is, if you're a Democrat, do you really want to go to this event? Do you think Hillary wanted to be there? I don't think so. And I think, there's no reason for.
But what was the forgive me for interrupting. Right. What was the best thing ever was at President Carter's funeral, where Trump and Obama were laughing and joking and yucking it up.
Yeah.
So that proves that this Trump's a demon, Trump's this, Trump's that. They never believed that.
No.
It was all politics. And that media allowed them to get away. Oh, it's the end of democracy. No. Democracy is when we talk about issues where we can debate different points and move forward.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
I don't know about the worst or best part of that is when they show, and then Kamala looks back and you go, where she's ticked off. You can tell she's ticked off. She sees that.
The latest thing is that she's going to divorce and then go get back with Willie Brown, I think.
Oh, is Willie still alive?
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I will tell you this. Obama was out there in California when she was Attorney General, and he was hitting on her. I mean, he was flirting it up big, talking about hot. She's the hottest looking attorney general in the nation, or something like that. I mean, I couldn't believe Obama's. I figure he heard it from Michelle when he got home.
Well, we're digressing, but
I know it.
But anyway, it was quite an inauguration. To me, the highlight though, the entire highlight of the day was that he goes right to the Oval Office and starts signing those executive. I mean, who does that?
No,
and he lets everybody. The media's in there, and
that was
it was awesome.
And that was great. But Trump has had more interaction taking questions from media in a week than Biden did in 4 years.
I think he did it in 1 day.
But where I loved it, was Trump's speech. His inaugural speech put it right to Obama, to Hillary, to Joe Biden, that their policies are destructive on the body public. Their policies and those of the Democratic Party are evil and corrupt. And until they change those, they don't have a party. They have, in my opinion, a RICO organization, which are racketeering. And intimidation.
The president gets to select. It has a certain number of seats. It's a formula up there. When they decide to move it inside, every member of Congress was given one of those seats, and there were very few left over. And then CNN's Gayle King says, I don't see a lot of color in there, and then she says, I'm very intrigued by that, I find that, and I'm like, you idiot!
Well, the one thing about idiocy is it's consistent.
Yeah.
But the best thing that I love was Carrie Underwood belting out a cappella, America the Beautiful.
She unified that room doing that.
Yeah, she did. She got everybody to sing along with her. And I wrote a little story and a list that included links to every one of Trump's executive orders on that first day. There were 48 of them. And at the very bottom of that story, I said, oh, by the way, Native Oklahomans proved that they know what to do when accompaniment does not show up. And then I put the clip of Carrie Underwood belting out that because, we do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oklahomans
Hillary sang along.
She said, Carrie goes, it's okay. I don't need it. It was just so cool. It's okay. I don't need it.
That's okay. We do this.
Yeah. And
she's a pro.
Yeah.
Talk about
she won a whole bunch of fans and a lot of them back because a lot of people probably thought she was going liberal or whatever. But no, she won a lot of people back. And it's
well, and that stage presence and the folksiness. I don't know if Bianca could have done that. Beyonce. I'm sorry.
What Obama and Biden and most of the left are guilty of is professordom. They talk as though they're lecturing a class of minions.
Yep.
Or students that are required to be silent or cannot speak or talk back to them.
Yep.
Trump talks to people, not at people.
Yep.
And he will engage and respond and welcome that kind of conversation.
I agree. He's not intimidated by it.
Well, and he's comfortable in his own skin, and he's not lying to you, which, of course, is different than every other Democrat in the world.
I want to say something else that happened, moved to the end of the week. Last night I watched him with a little bit of a conference with government at all levels in L.A.
Oh, yeah.
He had the mayor, he had governor, and it was surprising how civil, there were times he kind of pointed out, he says, here's where you screwed up.
Yeah.
But he didn't harangue them about it either.
Right.
But he took them to school and basically said, no, waiting a week is not right. You let them get to their own property. Let them fix it.
Yeah, that mayor.
And the mayor, one thing great about California is it gives such a perfect illustration of incompetence so often. From cleaning their forests to rebuilding their cities. Once, and with a coastal commission that is anti-everything, it's quite possible California may turn into a red state.
Well, everybody agreed. The Coastal Commission was the loser of the week. That was,
L.A. and Oklahoma have a lot in common. We've had people coming back and forth ever since the Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
And my generation, it was Leon Russell and J.J. Cale and those kinds of folks. But talent comes from here, goes there, gets recognized, and comes back.
Yeah.
And Will
Rogers, another one.
One of my best friends was Buddy Jones. And, Buddy was the business manager for Leon Russell for a long time. And Buddy came back, and we were sitting in his living room one time. I said, why did you come back? I mean, you were in the middle of everything with L.A. And he goes, David, I came back to Oklahoma because it was conservative. I don't want to live in L.A.
Yeah.
Love you. Been there. Great. Have a great time. Coming back to Tulsa.
Tito Jackson lived up in Claremore here, Michael Jackson's brother,
Oh, yeah.
He's like, hey, I can't go fishing in California. I can fish here.
Look, you can get out of downtown Tulsa and be on a lake with a fishing pole and the line in the water in about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
In almost any direction you want to take out of the city.
Yeah, I love pretty water out in Sapulpa.
Yeah.
Great fishing lake. Well, anyway, so I think there's a lot of good things that I think can happen from that. What Trump did do in that was just hit them on the, no, don't treat people like children. And I think he exposed that because it's got to be safe. He says they can handle it, Trump is like, let people take care of their own property. They'd rather be the first person rather than wait for 10 waves of looters to go through and find the household jewelry,
Yeah. I was just looking on here. Trump has fired 17 inspector generals, or watchdogs at the different agencies. So he's just going through. He's not playing around.
Yeah, if you've kept your mouth shut through 4 years of Biden, you ain't fit for the job.
Well, here's the other thing. Watchdogs that don't watch are no good.
Yeah.
So let him go through. Yep. Let him dodge or whatever he's going to do with Elon Musk and everybody else. I am so proud of this administration, and they've only been there for a week. But we've got to support them on the ground. We've got to communicate with our electeds in Washington and locally that it's time to recognize reality.
Right.
Okay.
It's time to be practical again, not hysterical for a change. Let's be practical and make this government work.
All right. I'm stirred up. I'm going to do it.
Well, hold on. Here, I just want to read one thing. It's a widespread massacre, one of the terminated inspector general told the Post. Whoever Trump puts in now will be viewed as a loyalist and undermine the entire system.
Oh, God. Yeah, who are you reading? Where's that from?
No, that's a quote from one of the inspector generals that was fired.
Okay.
That's one of them.
I figured that was New York Times.
Oh, no, it's just a quote from one of the ones that got fired.
Yeah.
But 17 of the agencies.
A do-nothing guy is now saying nothing will get done.
Right. Well, that he's going to put his people. Well, of course, duh.
But what I love about this is they have analyzed government as they were waiting to assume the positions of power. Because if you tell a bureaucrat that they have to write a report to justify their existence, they may do nothing else, but they will write a very compelling report that justifies their existence or their paycheck, which is really what we're talking about here. So they looked at it from afar. They have been there before. Now they're coming back with the wisdom that you learn from being apart and then returning again. I think these are great times. I do believe this is going to be a golden age for America. And we are, I'm delighted the oil and gas business is not a target for these leftist fools, and that they're not in control of it, that we can make America wealthy and safe and prosperous, and I'm delighted.
Yeah, but I've got to say it, Eddie. I'm just
go ahead.
chomping. I'm calling out Tom Cole and Mark Wayne Mullen, two tribal members of our Congress. They need to be the ones that write the bill and call for its passage to decommission the reservations of Oklahoma that Gorsuch says are still existing, to get rid of this McGirt ruling effect. I'm saying it to them because, quite honestly, I doubt that Cole or Mullen really want to get rid of it. Or maybe they're too afraid of their tribal members. What do you think, David? Did I just execute myself?
One of the most, I realize there's been a conflict between the tribes and the state for a long time. The tribes were always suing the state back in the day. They stopped suing the state when they had the legal opportunity to establish casinos.
Yeah.
Now they're just gathering money and buying the state back.
Yeah.
The question becomes, if I'm not living in Oklahoma, but I'm living on Cherokee land or Osage land or Creek land, then how does that impact me? How is that going to impact my children, my grandkids? I mean, the point of Oklahoma, the seal, is a farmer and an Indian shaking hands. If we're now shaking hands with knives behind our back, getting ready to knife the other, this is not the plan. Now, the McGirt jurisdiction began with criminal. We've got more FBI running around trying to do some of these cases. The tribal courts, I don't think, are set up for this. But Governor Stitt, had a great line on this. He basically said if the tribes want to reestablish their nations as sovereign, that's fine. Then I won't have to govern, and we won't have to put any money out, and, whatever. Great. Then I don't have to worry about that anymore. So are we going to be 89 different states? At what point do you say, no, we are one people with one purpose? Now, my family's been here since 1836. I have a photograph of all the folks lined up on the porch trying to take a family, 3 or 4 generation family photo from back in the day. we were interested in farming and ranching and building retail businesses and doing what individually we could do to prosper ourselves and our prodigy. We, you don't see a lot of ranting and raving from Indian people, I believe, because they have accepted the culture that is most prosperous for them.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to go back to, the old days, which apparently the left wants us all herding sheep, then, okay, I can understand that as an objective. But I am interested in, the coming generations, not those generations so much past. I want to look at the future and how we are going to build Oklahoma. And we can't do that without working together with the tribes. We cannot abuse the tribes. By the same token, if the tribes want to be sovereign, then I don't want to live here. I don't want to live under tribal government, because I've seen they are just as corrupt as any other government, if not more so in some cases.
Well, right. You and I would not be granted citizenship. Well, now by the history of your family, it tells me that you come from Indian blood.
I have never claimed Indian blood, but I am a Cherokee grandfather, because my daughter married a card-carrying member of the tribe, and the grandkids are card-carrying voting members of the tribe. But they look pretty doggone white.
That blonde hair.
I wanted to get them both
You haven't
T-shirts
seen my
that said,
grandkids.
don't blame me, I'm Cherokee.
Okay.
And it's kind of like all of us are mixed race.
Sure we are.
Yeah, no, you're right.
If you go back far enough, everybody in Oklahoma is part Indian.
Yeah.
I was actually working with a tour that the Chamber of Commerce had, and we were going into the Gilcrease Museum, and one of the tour participants had their young child, and he goes, and he asked me, where are all the Indians? He was looking for teepees and feather headdresses and all of that, and I kind of got on one knee and looked him in the eye, and I go, they're all around you.
Yeah.
This leads into this next thing. In 2023, there were 250,000 babies born to illegal aliens. 250,000
in America.
Yeah, and where else would they be if they were illegal aliens? But so anyway, and then in 2023, you had that. You moved to 2024, which I would say at least that, if not more. So we can say that population grew by at least 500,000, maybe more, and we're already in 2025. This brings me to the fact that Trump is finally the first president in history, I guess, to actually try to reevaluate the 14th Amendment to its original purpose. There was an original purpose, and it was not dealing with immigration.
Yeah, the anchor baby syndrome.
The anchor baby thing, right. The 14th Amendment was written, the first part of Article 1 of the 14th Amendment was specifically written for slaves, the freed slaves. And that they were born here and that their prodigy would be citizens, because slaves were not citizens at that time. It bestowed citizenship on the former slaves. What happened later in this not this century, the last one, the 21st century. Wait, are we? No, 20th century, man. I'm sorry. In the 20th century, they then tried to apply it to anybody that comes in. And that's when we started getting anchor babies and people coming. You started having birthright tourism.
Yeah. By the way, in that clause, it says born in the United States. The clause and subject to the jurisdiction of was the caveat to remove the Indian tribes, because remember when Greenwood LaFleur was told by Andrew Jackson, okay, you guys want to live autonomously, you got to move out to Indian territory. You live in Mississippi, you're gonna have to be a part of that state. And he gave up being the principal chief of the tribe, said, you guys go. I'm a senator in the state legislature.
Right.
And so that's the thing. Does that clause, here's the key thing, and Trump is going to grab onto this clause. Does subject to the jurisdiction thereof, is that met by somebody who is smuggling themselves in to the territory of the United States?
And I have to ask, you referred to these people as illegal immigrants?
Yes.
I thought they were foreign invaders.
Well,
or criminal invaders.
It's the same. Essentially, it's the same thing. They're criminal. Illegal is illegal.
If your first act is to break the law,
right,
you're not a citizen I care to have as a neighbor.
Right.
No offense intended.
See, and Trump is saying that alone means you're not subjecting yourselves to the jurisdiction.
Yeah, you are not subject to the jurisdiction.
Right.
So all of these things are going to work out. We do have to be patient with those who are still, as Rush Limbaugh said, of less information than others.
Yeah.
Because we do want to bring them along, and I'm probably not as good in being as diplomatic as I used to be.
Yeah. I do have a solution that doesn't require a constitutional amendment change. And it would be a Supreme Court ruling that says the person who comes in illegally is not subjecting themselves to the jurisdiction. Their descendant, born here, could, at the age of majority, 18, could appeal for citizenship, but not till they're 18.
I am so glad not to be an attorney. I don't want to carry that burden and that ego day in, day out.
Yeah.
While many think that corruption is a political thing, the most damning corruption is in the court system. And Oklahoma has a corrupt court system.
Oh, huge.
A huge court problem. The Trial Lawyers Association and their minions.
Yep.
Now, and of all of that, and we know about that throughout the state of Oklahoma, what I think is interesting is Tulsa County is apparently so corrupt, other Oklahoma attorneys will not come to practice in this county because they can't even figure out what's moving and shaking in the courthouse other than, good old boy friends, whatever, making deals one way or the other.
I mean, Jeff Kriegel, the attorney, has now been in solitary confinement in the Tulsa jail for over 2 years, waiting for justice. And all it's about is a former employee of Stephen Kunzweiler wanted to get full custody of her child, and this attorney who's sitting in jail, he all of a sudden had all these charges brought up for basically kinky sex since getting divorced from one of Steve's associate prosecutors. That just looks like corruption to me.
There's a lot to Jeff's case. I have talked with his family.
Yeah.
And would like to do an interview and a lot of stories on that when the time is appropriate.
I know. Waiting.
There are some real issues with that. The problem is that lawyers, by and large, are the most intelligent students in their college class. They're smart people.
Yeah.
Then they make a deliberate decision to pursue a monopolistic cash flow that puts them in a position of being predators over everyone else in the country who is prey that they feed off of. Then, as they are schooled in law school, they are said, I believe this quote is from Oliver Wendell Holmes, that justice stops at the courthouse steps and only law proceeds therein.
Whoa.
Now, when you think about that, how then can we, as the prey of these feasting carnivores, ensure, because we pay for the court system.
Yeah.
So how can we, non-lawyers, verify that there is any justice at all within the system so named for it?
So you're referring to this private club you have to seek membership in called the Bar Association. And the Bar Association has a monopoly over who gets to practice and who gets to convene the court. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a racket. It's it's antitrust.
Well, a real clear tell on that in Oklahoma is any attorney that criticizes a judge can lose their law license. Something
Kriegel's done that in
years.
spades.
So what we're saying is, and I don't want to comment on that case yet. I am going to write a lot about it at some point, I hope.
Yeah.
There's also another case. There is an unsolved murder from Tulsa County, the Gertrude Marshall Blakey case, that happened 43 years ago. It's still an unsolved case. Tulsa Police Department refuses to release to the trustee or the family the investigative file on it. Wow. And it is a horrible, horrible case of injustice where, and it was over money, a wealthy older woman was literally killed and embezzled, likely by another family member, but her grandkids, who she identified in her will as her beneficiaries, were shoved into DHS custody, and nobody represented them during proceedings, and the money just all disappeared.
Oh, God.
Now, you know, the reason why that case, I've been everywhere trying to get people to look at it, and nobody will, because there are too many individuals who at the time were attorneys who have become judges. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And what you're willing not to make a big deal about. You know, that little corruption that, well, we don't really want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Are you sure you want to bring that up?
Sure you want to bring that up, Dave?
Yeah.
You know, you can't rock the boat here
Yeah.
in Tulsa because, you know, that's the way Tulsa does things.
right.
You know, just you can come along, get along.
Yeah, you're going to hurt a lot of people.
Moving
doing
us
that.
along once again, I think we have 4 people confirmed now by the Senate.
Pete Hegseth late last night.
Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem has been.
That was this morning then.
Yeah, Kristi Noem is just now as the new DHS secretary.
She got the votes. The votes were held. Very good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So now DHS is a monster created by Bush Jr. in the wake of 9/11, Department of Homeland Security, and they brought in, they handled the border, right?
You know, DHS has so many different things to it, and you were absolutely right. George brought all of that stuff. W brought all that stuff together. And that shows the Bush family's greatest fault. They thought more government fixes stuff.
Right.
In Iraq, they brought in examples of the U.S. government and, as a way to run Iraq. That doesn't work either.
Right, but, they're head of Secret Service as part of DHS.
But what I'm saying is...
Coast Guard moved over to them.
Oh, my God.
All of these things, so bureaucracy fails miserably, so we're going to add more bureaucracy to it? I mean, this is exactly DHS. Now, Department of Homeland Security, not Oklahoma DHS.
Right.
So how they're going to fix this, the IQ level, the integrity level, the veracity of those Trump has chosen to run these departments, if the Democrats will stop being obstructionist and let us get those, or let Trump get those in place, then we can have the kinds of government change that we need to have to save the country.
Yeah, when Bush did that, and I think, what was it, the former, was it governor of Pennsylvania? I'm trying to remember his name.
I know what you're talking about. I forget his name, too.
And, but when you create a new department, you get rid of a lot of the deep state, basically. It's a way of reforming that you can't otherwise do. And that's why I'm hoping that the Justice Department gets a major haircut and the FBI gets shuttered and we rebuild a whole new institution. Because that's the only way I think you clean up the corruption of it. And then you aren't even guaranteed.
But, David, did you hear about the scarecrow in Oklahoma that received a national award?
Oh, no.
Yes, he was recognized for being outstanding in his field.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I just had to get into something a little lighter.
That sounds like
Eddie,
a
what do
dad
you
joke.
think?
I'm for it.
Yeah.
Now, hey, Marco Rubio is one of the others that was confirmed.
And you notice his first act? Freezing all foreign aid.
Right.
For
all
90
foreign
days.
Yeah, there's no foreign aid to anyone. I mean, if these guys keep going, we'll have a budget surplus in no time. I mean, just think if we freeze everything, and everything with foreign wise, and cut off the borders. We're not going to give money to anybody. We're cutting off feeding all these people. I mean, see, here's really the way to end the immigration issue and all these people. You just cut off no more welfare for them.
Yeah.
They'll go home. Yeah. They will go home. You have two options: starve to death, or we'll put you on a plane. We'll give you a free ride home.
Well, and that was the one disappointing thing for me personally during Joe Biden's time. I wanted to go to Mexico and then come in illegally into the country, get a free bus ride to Martha's Vineyard, have a phone and money and housing.
In New York, you get a hotel room.
Hey, I just wanted to
Waldorf
hang out
Astoria
with Obama because, the oceans are rising and he's got all that shoreline, and I just figured I could help him sandbag his mansion if it ever came to that.
Well, you guys remember when Novak Djokovic was not allowed in the U.S. Open because he wasn't vaccinated, can't come into the country unless you're vaccinated. And I'm like, why aren't you coming in through El Paso? I mean, really, he would have been exempt.
Yeah.
Well, that's something we need to look at. Joe Biden may have pardoned Fauci from American law, but I think it is time for the world to have a Nuremberg-style trial and bring him up on international charges for the number of people he killed worldwide.
Well, the problem with that, though, is the other countries are still trying to push the whole vaccine thing.
No, I don't know. I mean, Argentina, we can do rendition.
Well, that's true. Rendition, Fauci. That we did. Trump did take away his Secret Service. Did you know he had Secret Service protection?
Oh, and the crazy man John Bolton is complaining about that. I'm going.
Why should he have Secret Service? He shouldn't need it. He was anti-Trump. He shouldn't need Secret Service.
I am so tired of him. I am so tired of some of the others.
Yeah.
that just, look, let them slide. And maybe, again, we come back to media not being clever enough to come up with compelling stories. They have to go back to the same old hacks that say the same old stupid stuff. And, I'm to a point that the L.A. Times was paying me to cover Oral Roberts University and Oral Roberts.
So
back
it was
in the
you.
Yes. And I would feed them a little stuff. They would send me little checks. It was not a big thing. But the last time when I called them to talk to him, because Oral had gone into his prayer tower, and, God was going to call him home unless he raised a certain amount of money. I believe that was it.
Yeah.
Give me that Prime Time Religion, if you remember that book. I
You're
was
mean.
I
You're
was-
just mean.
I was back in all of those days, but the L.A. Times, when I called them and pitched them, they said, David, we appreciate what you've done for us, but we are declaring him non-news.
Yeah.
The problem is, if we do a story about him saying God's going to call him home, and God doesn't call him home and he raises the money, then we got to do another story about him raising the money. So to avoid the second story, we're just not going to write the first one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he was doing a lot of fundraising out in L.A. That's probably it. And when he retired, they bought him a place out in Palm Springs. Or is that place out in the desert, the real rich place?
Jerry Scholes, who wrote the book, Give Me That Primetime Religion, which, by the way, disappeared out of every library in the region because Oral and Richard folks didn't want that out there.
Yeah.
But it documented how Jerry Scholes had been a writer for Oral, had written the words that came out of Oral Roberts' mouth.
Yeah.
And all of this, God's giving him a complete vision on a hospital that he's going to build. Well, that was not what Jerry Scholes reported in his book. That didn't happen that way. It was a lot of conference and people getting together and deciding what they was going to do and blah, 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 blah. I appreciate what Oral Roberts did for this community. I appreciate the university.
It was a big economic boost. Right?
I would like for them to continue to be prosperous and grow as they are growing.
I think the Green family's done a great job of rescuing it.
The Green family really has, and I want them to be better. But we get better by realizing our and coming to grips with our faults as well as our blessings.
And that was Richard's failure. He just did not.
Well, Richard got in my face once.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
He put his nose a couple of inches away from my nose.
Yeah.
And he kept repeating ad nauseum, I invite you to leave. I invite you to leave. Yeah. I invite you to leave. He was essentially throwing me out of a public meeting, but it was held on the campus, and I left. And he actually had a security guard follow me out to make sure I totally left.
You accepted his invitation.
It's not the first time I've been thrown out of things. It was fairly pleasant.
Wow. You were invited by Richard.
The security guy behind me, I said, come on, let's just walk together on this. I go, I've been thrown out of bigger and better places than this. I'm not overly concerned about that. But, at one point, I was writing stories about the medical students who had invested in a medical school that then fell apart.
Yeah.
And the same thing with a law school that then fell apart. So, that's all history. But we need not to idolize individuals. We need to look at policy An individual is faulted by nature. All of us are.
Absolutely.
Except Eddie, and he may be perfect in all regards. But for the rest of us, we have these faults, and we do the best we can.
Yeah. No, I
forward.
came down here to go to Rhema, and I have considerable amount of respect for Kenneth Hagin, the founder of it. Not so much his son, but
I like his son too, actually.
okay. But the thing I had a problem with is what you had was the five families. How can I say that?
The five families.
Yeah.
Like the mafia.
Yes. Because in order to do anything in the religious world here, you needed the blessing of the five families. It just was that way.
I am not aware of all of that. I know people that worked for Oral for a long time and still stay in touch with some of them. They're mainly retired. But during the day, I called one of Oral's office, and I was trying to get them to do a story, and I got a hold of the lady who did the public information for them. And she goes, David, you don't understand. We don't want coverage. My job is to keep Oral out of the newspaper.
Yeah, there you go.
Keep the university out of the newspaper.
At least she's honest with
At
you.
least she was honest.
Yeah, I have to say, I only had one personal encounter with Richard, and it's a different one. But I was at Baskin Robbins, and he had his grandkids with him, and buying them ice cream, and it was a little dirty, barefoot. It was summertime, and they had been playing somewhere, and they were just jumping all around, and
and he's sugaring them some more.
and buying them. Yeah. But, I mean, it was just weird because he's still in his suit.
Yeah. Wow.
But these little, if it weren't him that he was with, you would think some, poor white trash family, as we call them. And, but it was I was able to see him on a different side, and it allowed me to humanize him more.
Yeah.
Than see the evil Richard Roberts,
Yeah.
And we always have to keep these people in, have see two sides. They're like us. They're just human beings that, in his case, he didn't choose to be the son of who he ended up being the son of, and surrounded by the stuff that he was surrounded with, and that a lot of times, your environment creates who you are. Now, ultimately, he will still have to answer for everything he's done to the Almighty. But I'm just saying, I try not to be as harsh towards certain people as others are.
Yeah.
Unless it's some just downright dirty, dastardly act or something, But knowing the fact of who I am and how flawed I am and can be, and how, I imagine myself blowing people away in front of my car constantly as I'm on my way, even here this morning, Wait
a minute, was I one of those?
No, but just realizing, like I said, that I am but flesh, and I need to have mercy on others as well.
Can I say this?
Yeah.
I was riding on the campaign bus for Gary Richardson's governor race campaign kickoff. We're going to Oklahoma City because he's going to do it there by the Capitol. And John Stiles, professor at ORU, was there, and we were talking, and I said, so how do you know Gary? And he said, well, he was my attorney. John Stiles was the guy that uncovered all the corruption and the famous laptop. The Hunter Biden laptop wasn't the original. It was Richard Roberts' sister-in-law who had a laptop that something was wrong with it, and asked one of the students to fix it. And the student sees all of this list of potential scandals that could destroy the ministry, and gives it to Stiles. Stiles goes to the Board of Regents, who are just a bunch of cronies of Richard's, right? TV preachers. And instead, Stiles gets punished, retribution, and he gets fired. And I said, so why did you pick Gary for your attorney on this for wrongful dismissal? And that he says, well, Richard Roberts recommended him. I recommended him. He says, oh yeah, I heard him say 3 times, I hate Gary Richardson. I hate Gary Richardson. So I don't know, maybe you and Gary are part of a certain alumni of.
And by the way, based on the comments earlier, I do need to say that there are individual attorneys of great honor, integrity, courage, and they know that the system is not working.
Yeah.
And they do their best to try and make it work for their clients.
Yes.
But I also have to ask, how long do these fresh black coffee things go on? Because I got a union contract that says I only have to talk for so long.
Normally
David's got to pee, okay?
Well, no. Normally we kick people out after an hour, but I didn't want to make you feel like you weren't special. So you're very special to make it longer than an hour, and I'll let you in on some of our other discussion. But we will go ahead and wrap it up. I just did want to say another thing Trump has done. He has created an ambassadorship to Hollywood.
Oh,
and he has named Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson.
Oh, yes!
Yeah, and John Voight as his ambassadors. There's 3 of them.
Because they've all been banned by Hollywood.
Well, essentially, yeah. But they said, well, I don't know. The Tulsa King, Sylvester Stallone, I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Right.
We love the show.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tulsa King.
Which, by the way, is filmed in Oklahoma City.
Well, not anymore. They moved to Atlanta now.
First season, you're right.
First season.
All the indoor scenes are Oklahoma City.
I'm going, use our name, take our fame, go do something else and film it elsewhere.
Yeah, they still have
you, Hollywood.
They still have a skyline, and a couple of sites or the airport or something that they from archives they've filmed here.
Yeah, B-roll.
but now everything's done in Atlanta there, so. Sadly, but it's interesting. But anyway, those are his ambassadors to Hollywood, so we'll see what that does. But overall, it was a great week. It's a great week. Pray for President Trump. Pray for our nation. Hold us 3 up. We'll have more to report next week. I think there's some things coming up this week that are going to be very important for us. Yeah,
Tuesday night. Come on down to your precinct caucus meeting.
That's right.
With us.
Yeah,
okay?
it's at the church.
Several of them.
Oh, okay.
Go
several
to
of them. Yeah.
TulsaGOP.org.
No, there's only one that counts, and that one is at just Mine's the only one that's important. No, go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to commend the leadership for changing the location. The folks up in Black Tulsa we're talking about, north of downtown, they were going to make them go all the way to Collinsville for their precinct meetings, and they moved them to Charles Page Boulevard, not quite as far.
If anyone would like to enhance the Republican Party in Tulsa County, if they want to help us make it, again, an effective organization, then the process is 2-step. 1, go to your precinct meeting, and 2, come to county convention.
Yeah, be a delegate.
And be a delegate to the county convention. That will give you a vote.
Yes.
But we have real trouble, and it's a whole nother show to talk about.
Well, we've got to say, I'm going to put an anti-plug in here. There's a lady who works in the office now. The name is Charity Marcus, and we cannot have her as our new.
You just hate black people, don't you?
Yes, I do. But there's too much negative about her, and we'll have to get into that here before the next.
Just one real brief. She has said repeatedly in multiple audiences that she wants to reduce the size of the county party because it's easier to manage if there are less people in it.
Yeah.
So that's like saying, hey, why don't we just give you the name of the party and the ability to raise money, and you can go spend the money any way you want to.
Yeah.
She is the anti-party party.
She's the anti-mega because
yes,
If Donald Trump's about anything, it's growing the base. That's where political power comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been involved with Vanessa Hall Harper. They actually copyrighted a Black Wall Street LLC and a Black Lives Matter
Right.
LLC.
She's the one. I have a video of her cheering on when Brookside was shut down and then vandalism.
And she's
happened.
running, as I understand it, for chairman of the county party.
Right.
That's the last I heard.
So I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about that more, but we will talk about.
You want to shut us up before we ask Eddie Huff to run for that chair?
Yes.
There is a really
I'm back
good
to running from office.
There is a really good candidate by the name of Melissa Myers.
Melissa Myers
running.
Was she
And
a candidate for Senate?
No, she was. She
County
ran
commissioner.
for county commissioner.
That's what it was.
And now she's going to run, and she's an organizer that could help grow the party.
She's a go-getter.
Yeah.
I met with her this week to share some concerns I had and trying to sharpen her her abilities. But I think overall she's got a great heart, good Christian girl, woman, excuse me, young lady.
You sexist.
Yes.
You ain't black
great
people,
family
and
and all. Tulsa girl too.
the girl thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, there I go again.
At our age,
Good old girl.
every woman is, is
that
younger
is true.
than
That
we
is
are.
true. That is true. I got. He gave me one. Yeah. All right. Every woman's a girl. Is no.
We'll call it a show.
Yeah, but anyway, thank you for watching. We'll get more into this next week. Apparently, we were supposed to have our TBD thing this week, a CBD meeting Thursday, but apparently. Rhonda has called there's some special big thing happening this Thursday.
I'm not following CBD. What? No, what?
Yeah, it's my. I think it's Ziggy's.
Oh yeah,
Ziggy's meeting.
Oh yeah,
yeah. What is it? Beer and discussion. Something beer and discussion. Conversation. No, not conversation.
Yeah.
I can't remember. See, it's a name I came up with and can't even remember it myself. I've got so many things shooting through my mind right now. At the
Eddie,
last
I'm
minute.
3/8 German, but he's more German than I am. He looks more German than me, evidently.
Yeah.
But he tries to get everybody to go eat German food with him once a month.
Yeah. Ziggy's Sausage Factory.
There you go. Siggy's.
Siegfried is his actual name. He's Austrian, good Österreicher.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. You got to stop me as no, I better quit. I can't. Too much going through my mind.
All right. I hope you still
slap
catch
me,
part
Dave.
of the
Slap me.
Bishop's,
Give me back.
Memorial. So, right, you're going to the memorial.
Yes, that's.
Oh yeah, we got to get Dave out of here.
Yeah.
All right.
Got to go.
All right. God bless
Bye-bye.
everybody. Have a good day, and we will talk.